Have you ever felt like God promised you something so big and you've always looked forward to it your whole life, but it just doesn't seem to have happened? And so you have this dream, this idea of what life should be like, and no matter how hard you've tried, no matter what doors you've knocked on, nothing has seemed to work. This could have something to do with your ministry, for example, God showing you what He was going to do through you, and you really seeing it and going after it and making so many sacrifices in life only to feel like it's not opening up to you, like you're not getting that breakthrough. It could be in your family, like you've done everything to make yourself the right type of spouse, yet every dating relationship ends and it's just not working out, and you feel like God told you you would be married. It would be the right person, that He has somebody for you, but you're just stuck in the middle. This also can happen on our jobs, in our careers, where we feel like I've done everything, I'm showing up, I'm giving my all, I got promised the promotion, and no matter how hard I do what I'm supposed to do and give my all, it just never works out. I feel like I'm always getting the short end of the stick. I don't get the job. I don't get the promotion. I mean, where does the list end? Children, business, health. I mean, the list can go on and on. There seems to be in many of us, though, this hope and this expectation of where God has told us we are going. Yet then we get into a season of life and start wondering, am I delusional? Like, did I even hear that from God? Or has God forgotten what He told me? Well, what if I could show you from the Bible, example after example, that God has not forgotten you, that He did give you that promise, and that you will walk into it. It's just that you're in a season in the middle right now that doesn't make sense. If I can share with you a little personal story where this is all coming from. I was walking my dogs, which is where I usually do my prayer time, and I'm just talking with God about the ministry He told me I would walk in. He said these things to me when I was 12 years old, and I went through drugs after that and got into church and served and did everything in my local church, and I made so many sacrifices through college and just given my all to prayer and to ministry, and I was teaching in the public schools at the time, and God started dealing with me about quitting my job. He started transitioning me out of my local church to travel and speak in other churches, and really led me into publishing books online and doing YouTube videos. And I got into this season really expecting some big things, and then the process in the middle from quitting my job to really getting where God showed me He was taking me has been a very long season. I've wrestled with doubts throughout this time. I've asked myself, am I delusional? Where is God in all of this? And then while walking my dogs the other day, He spoke to me and He said, Aaron, life and ministry comes in 3 phases. And I said, okay, enlighten me. And immediately, within 3 seconds, this stuff flashed through my mind. Everything I'm about to share with you, which is how I know it was God showing it to me. But I saw this stage of one growing in natural ways, having the vision of what God's going to do in your life, and also sort of learning enough to actually think you're something and that you're ready. Then I saw this second phase of real deep loneliness and isolation and questioning and not really getting anywhere, but truly developing and learning oneself. And then I saw the final stage of people walking in that calling. So are you ready? Watch this. Abram in Ur of the Chaldees, growing up with his family, learning how to do life. All of a sudden, God says, hey, Abram, leave your country, leave your family, go to a land I'm going to show you. He was way out into the Far East, where maybe Iran would be, and goes all the way through what would be modern day Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and Israel. He's walking through the desert. He's not with his friends. He's not with his family. He's alone. All he had was a calling and an idea of where God was taking him, but now he's walking through the middle of the desert. Then he gets to Israel. He gets established. Him and his wife, he have some kids. They become a great nation. So you have that phase where it's like God is developing you. You probably think you're something. Then this lonely phase where it's what is God doing? But it's a period of growth, and then the actual event unfolding. And this unfolds example after example throughout the Bible. Little Joseph growing up around his brothers. He has his dad's favor, that coat of many colors. He has dreams. He's all excited about it. Phase 1. Then he's all of a sudden sold as a slave into a foreign country, lied on, put in prison for 13 years, forgotten about, wondering, where is God? Where are these dreams now? Second phase. Then all of a sudden in one day, he's taken out of the prison, put in charge of Egypt, and becomes second in command next to the president himself. Third phase. Moses was in the palace for 40 years growing up, learning the Egyptian ways, learning the Egyptian culture. And so he really thought he was ready to lead and deliver the Jews, right? And then all of a sudden he flees and goes for 40 years on the backside of a desert tending sheep by himself. The next thing you really hear monumental in his life is 40 years later with the burning bush experience. That's when God sends him back and says, okay, now go do what you thought you were supposed to be doing in the first phase of your life, because now it's the third phase and it's time to go and do it. Go and do the plagues. Go and lead the people out of Egypt. Go and get them all the way to the promised land. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. David is fighting bears and fighting lions, an anointed king, and going up and fighting Goliath. I mean, he was bold. He was ready. He was prepared to be king. And then all of a sudden, the real king, Saul, starts chasing him. Now he's fleeing for his life. Now he's hiding in caves. Now he's wondering, how am I ever going to be king? Did God miss it? Did he anoint the wrong person? And then all of a sudden, through a series of events, David is sitting on the throne of Israel. Phase 1. Phase 2, phase 3. Jesus growing up, learning the ways of the world, learning the scriptures, doing what he does, debating with people when he's 12 years old in the synagogue. But then all of a sudden the Spirit leads him off into the desert for 40 days and he comes face to face with the devil himself and he fights while he's hungry and he struggles through his identity. But then he comes out of the desert and starts healing people and delivering people and preaching the kingdom of God. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The disciples were tax collectors and fishermen, learning the ways of the world, growing in natural ways, probably want to do something more with their lives. And then all of a sudden, they're walking around with this rabbi. They're not doing miracles. They're not teaching anybody. They're not doing any healings or deliverances. All they're doing is walking around a desert in the Middle East, probably sitting around wondering, when is it going to be my turn? But then all of a sudden, the disciples become apostles, and they start preaching on the day of Pentecost, and they start leading the church, and they start establishing churches all around the known world at that time, and they start doing signs and miracles and wonders. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Saul was a Pharisee of Pharisees, a killer of Christians, one of the strictest followers of the law. But all of a sudden, on a road someday, he gets blinded by Jesus Christ, falls off his horse, doesn't eat for days, has an entire identity shift, and then goes out as the Apostle Paul and writes more books of the New Testament than any other writer, establishes churches all over the known world, and becomes probably second to Christ, the most influential man in the entire New Testament. When I was walking down the street asking God, are you still in this? Did I miss it, or did you really call me? God showed me what I just shared with you in a split second, and then told me he gave us the butterfly as an illustration of the 3 phases of life. Every caterpillar learns the world around him, crawls, probably thinks he's somebody special, but then goes into a dark cocoon. And it's from that place of pain and questioning and isolation and maturation that out comes that butterfly. Could it be that God did not deny you? He didn't fail you. He didn't lie to you. He didn't deceive you. He's not carrying around a carrot in front of you, dangling in front of your face. That he really did give you a promise, but you were in the first phase of your life when he did, and now you're just walking through the second phase. You see, what you think is never going to happen in your butterfly phase is only because you're sitting in a cocoon right now. But that doesn't mean God wants you to always be a caterpillar, and it doesn't mean you're always going to be in that lonely place wondering, am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to have kids? Am I ever going to get out of debt? Am I ever going to be able to hear God's voice in prayer? Am I ever going to be able to fast as long as I set out to do? Am I ever going to be able to see somebody give their life to Christ? Am I ever going to have meaning on my job or in my business, impact in this world? Am I ever going to see my kid break through? Is my loved one ever going to come to Christ? Like, when you're asking those questions, you are in the cocoon phase, but it doesn't mean God has failed you. Keep on walking across the Middle East, Abram. Keep on traveling to the promised land, Israel. Keep on waiting through that prison, Joseph. Keep on listening for that burning bush, Moses. Keep on ducking spears as God lifts you to your next position, David. Keep on fighting the devil, Jesus. Keep on learning, disciple. Keep on fasting, Paul, because if God said it, he will make you a great nation. He will take you to the promised land. He will put you in charge of Egypt. He will have your brothers bow in front of you. He will use you to let his people go. He will put you on the throne. You will heal, deliver, and preach the kingdom. You will become an apostle. You will get married. You will have that child. You will have your breakthrough. Your ministry will blossom. Your business will open up. You will get the promotion. Why? Because what God told you in phase 1, he hasn't forgotten in phase 2, and he knows how to get you to phase 3. Hold on, trust God, and keep walking out the process. So thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the books I published for you, which are linked in the description below, and subscribe to join the community so we can catch each other in the next video together.